Hello, Sooner Nation. Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. It's almost game week. It's fast approaching, and it's time for another position group breakdown. Today, we're going to talk about maybe, really likely, the position group that everyone is curious to see the most. One that is drawing a lot of hesitancy and getting a lot of excitement around, and that is the offensive line group. Really, the offensive line group is, a lot of people say, can make or break this season. Everyone probably feels better about it now than they did, 2 months ago, Hunter, or whatever it is, because OU made some massive additions in this room out of the portal, and you combine that with the 2024 class that Bill Beatenbow has recruited, and you've got the numbers, you've got some depth with players. Now it's mix and match, and Bill Beatenbow doing his thing here.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of time before the season for the offensive line to continue to gel, for them to hopefully get their five picked out so that they can start running that same five through the remainder of practices leading up to the Temple game. But even then, I mean, I think the Temple game could be a game that they could still try to figure it out if need be. The addition you're talking about from a couple months ago was Branson Hickman, one of the highest rated centers on PFF in the transfer portal from SMU. So that helps out a lot as Troy Everett got injured in spring ball this past spring, and with Josh Bates unknown, hasn't really played a whole lot, played very minimal snaps in the 2023 season, now redshirt freshman. So that room, I think there's really only two guys that a lot of people are certain that they're going to be starting, and that's Fabechi and Wiwu and Jacob Sexton. Outside of that, I still think there's room for maybe a few different names to be thrown around at the tackle and guard positions.
Yeah, Fabechi, Hickman, Spencer Brown, Tarquin. Four guys OU gets out of the portal that people are really talking about these guys. You've heard some Spencer Brown talk emerging in the last couple of weeks. Tarquin was a guy that has the size and has been actually around two big-time programs, so he's not new to Power 5 football. Fabechi, veteran, has great size. A lot of people high on Fabechi. And then Hickman has played so much at center in college football. And SMU, again, has had tough schedules in their non-con, so he's gone against really good competition. You got those guys, and you mentioned someone in Jacob Sexton, who the talk has really, really been high on. Jacob Sexton has kind of been the talk around this Sooner line for a little bit. And what I think, Hunter, you talked about, can Bill Beatenbow get the 5 for the Temple game? And here's what I would love to see, because you got these guys coming in like Eugene Brooks, EPL, some others. You got Heath Azida. You got all kinds. Josh Bates is someone in the last week or so that a lot of people are talking highly of, Brent Venables included, about just how much progress he's made. So what I would love to see is a group of 10 where you do have your 5 that you kind of are going with, and these other 5 you can spot play during the non-con and see if they're different in games, because some guys may have it in practice and they just don't have it in games, and you got to have someone else to plug and play. So I would love to see 10 deep where they can kind of do a little mix and match and see Bill Beatenbow can, and then as you get to that Tennessee game, you're set.
Yeah, I think if they continue to do mix and matching against, say, Houston and then into the Temple game, that would be a little bit, or not Temple, Tulane, sorry. I think that would be a little concerning. I think Temple is really the only game that you really want to be doing something like that if you have to do it. I think with Houston, I mean, I think they're going to be a solid team. Tulane, I think, is going to be a lot better than people expect. They have a very tough non-conference schedule, so they're probably not going to make the playoff. But I don't think either of those games are the non-con games that you can just kind of breeze through and try to make a bunch of adjustments on your offensive line. I think if you did that, you would potentially be in an upset scenario.
Well, here's what I do know. Your first SEC game likely could be the toughest
defensive line, yes.
You're going to see all year. So if you don't know who it is, that game you might have to pull someone because, and that's what I mean when you go 10 deep, you've got
I
to play
get you.
guys the first. You've got to play guys the first 3 games because if that defensive line is ripping OU to shreds in that Tennessee game, Bill Beatenbow's got to make some changes. And we saw it last year, actually, with Bill Beatenbow.
Yeah.
He was not slow to make changes. He's got to do that again this year because they have the depth to plug and play someone else. If a guy's not getting it done, you've got to have the competition and you've got to make those decisions.
Yeah, last year it was with Savion Byrd. He got pulled multiple times for mistakes being made and ended up later on in the season not even playing really at all from that point on and transferred to SMU. So, again, on the offensive line, you mentioned the young guys earlier of the 24 class. I don't know how much they could really see the field. I think Daniel Akinkumi is at least a year away. Eugene Brooks, maybe, but even at that guard position, I think if something's not going well, I mean, you also have Garen Hatchett there that could be a starting guard for Oklahoma. Heath Ozida as well, an additional year in the system compared to Eugene Brooks. And then Eddie Pierre-Louis, I mean, an athletic freak, probably the most athletic player on the not only on the offensive line, but I think you could even throw him into that conversation of the entire team when you're seeing what he's able to do in track at that size. It's unbelievable. A 4-star recruit. The issue with him again, though, is didn't enroll early. Wasn't able to because of Tampa Catholic. So having to come in June compared to coming into the program in January, that's 6 months, and that's a time that's, I think, going to make a lot of difference, especially in that O-line. We talk about the gelling and all of that. I mean, trying to get 5 that are comfortable with one another, that are going to put together the best possible line you could have.
Yeah, and I cannot believe I failed to mention Garen Hatchett earlier when I was talking about the portal additions. He was fighting a little bit of an injury as he came in on campus, but he was a guy that a lot of Sooner fans and still do think that could be a starter in this group, in this rotation. So yeah, Garen Hatchett has also played in big time games. So Tarquin, Brown, Hatchett, Hickman, Fabechi, you really brought those. If you had not brought in, if Bill Beatenbow had not brought in those guys, it would be looking a lot different. You'd have to rely on some of those young ones. And if let's not forget, Caden Green was a true freshman last year and made his way to a starter. EPL is a little late on campus, but all of this is just going to be interesting. I guarantee if you put a true serum in Bill Beatenbow, he's saying he really likes what he's got here. It's just going to fall on him now and this offensive line coaching staff and the coordinators to really put together the best group for this team.
Yeah, and the one area of focus that they have to be better on from early on in the season is the run game. Last year, it was just as much of the offensive line's fault for the issues, the faults in the running game, as it was the running back room. It was just neither of them were meshing together at all until really about, I mean, the 7th game of the season when Gavin Sawchuk really started to take over, or maybe it was the 8th game of the season. I think he had 5 straight games with 100-yard rushing in the season. And from that point on, you started to see things going. And I think we've talked about it before. Seth Luttrell now calling plays for Oklahoma with Bill Beatenbow. I think you're going to see a different style of run game that's really going to allow Beatenbow to get his offensive line unit to be more effective in that run game. You're going to see more pulling of the tackle and guard that Bill Beatenbow has done for a lot. And it's for many years now at Oklahoma, and it's made a lot of guys a lot of money because plays like that are what NFL teams are looking for when they're about to make a selection in the NFL draft or contract extension, as Beatenbow has put so many offensive linemen into the NFL.
Yeah, and then one other guy you briefly mentioned that I haven't talked a lot about is Troy Everett, a guy who people were considering a starter, had the injury. Good news is he's ahead of schedule on the return, and he's going to be ready. So, again, Bill Beatenbow has options, and now it's time. We're less than 2 weeks away. Be great to see what this group looks like and if this can be more of a strength than a weakness as people think it is right now. So less than 2 weeks away. Thanks again for watching the content on the Sooner Surge YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our station. We will catch you next time.